What's up? Hey, hello, everyone. Wow. So today we are back going to be talking about Survivor season 43, episode 5, one right before the merge or the fake merge, apparently. So my name is Rachel.
I'm Alyssa. This episode, I feel like we talk a lot about Survivor's editing and how as soon as someone says, like, oh, so and so is definitely going home, like, you know that they're not going home. And this episode, I feel like, was the archetypical episode of, like, that format. So, I have thoughts.
I thought this was a fun episode. I think it's always fun to watch people get played and not played in like a mean way where it's like a personal attack or something like that. But this was people getting duped and they're thinking they're playing or one upping some other person. And so I thought it was fun.
I think it was fun because they were the ones playing themselves. Like, they really thought they were doing something and they weren't. And I feel like that's always more fun to watch than people like maliciously attacking another person because it's kind of like you could have stopped this if you had just like stopped and thought for like 10 seconds. So,
Exactly.
yeah.
They got duped by their own self actions. So, for some confessionals this episode, the people with the most number of confessionals, we have Janine and Cassidy at 7. Makes sense, Janine went on the trip. She also finds the beware advantage. Cassidy is a focal point this episode, given all of the trickiness that is happening. Jesse and Gio had the next most amount this episode at 6. Also makes sense. Jesse went on the trip as well. Gio, focal point this episode. And then Cody, Dwight, and Noelle had 0 confessionals, the least number this episode. So the red team didn't really get much screen time besides Jesse here.
Yeah, and I think that's okay because I feel like Cody, at least, who's been established as more of a character, like, we don't really need to hear from him every episode. And Dwight and Noelle, I feel like, aren't really big characters this season. So, yeah.
Yeah, especially Red didn't go to tribal council. Makes sense. If nothing really happens, you don't need to give them that confessional this episode. And like you were saying, Cody, he still has the most number of confessionals overall this season with 29. And then the least number of confessionals are James and Ryan at 10.
hmm I feel like all of that kind of tracks. Like, it makes sense with who's been getting, like, narrative attention. So,
Yeah, I agree. So once we hit the fake merge, it'll be interesting to see. We start off this episode post tribal council. We see it's the nighttime segment. Cassidy is maybe a little bit angry. She's like, okay, I want to talk to the person who voted for me. Let's clear the air. And it seems like Cassidy is in her revenge era, low key.
I thought it was funny because Cassie was like, hey, like, I want to talk to whoever voted for me. And then Ryan's like, I'll talk to you, even though he wasn't the one who voted for her. And I was like, sir, that's not what we're asking here.
So last week in the episode podcast, we were thinking, okay, was Gio in on the plan? Was he not in on the plan? It seems like Gio and Ryan were both told the plan that they're not voting Cassidy and they're going to vote Lindsay, but it was last minute. So that is something we weren't sure of. So it does seem like Gio potentially voted for Cassidy last week to prevent like a shot in the dark play.
Yeah, I mean, I always think it's interesting when people are like playing to avoid the shot in the dark play when we haven't really heard anything more about shot in the dark for like a while as viewers. So it feels like they're strategizing around something that's a non-issue.
And it's we've talked about it, like especially with the Chanel vote last season where she voted for Mike and then Mike disliked her come merge and for the rest of her time on the show. It's like you are yes, it's good to prevent against that scenario, but it's such a small scenario and in these 6-person tribes to put your vote and to vote for someone, they might get really angry about it like we saw Mike having this like vendetta against the person who put his name down. So it's sort of tricky because yes, you do want to prevent against it, but it's such a small chance that it's going to happen. They have to play it. It's a 1 in 6. They have to hit the shot in the dark correctly for that split vote to work compared to an idol where okay, it's 100% chance if they play it correctly that they're safe, compared to that 1 and 6. It's like, it's harder to play against the shot in the dark.
Yeah, but I think when the Shot in the Dark first came out, we were talking about how more of the ramifications would be social, just because it's such a small chance of it happening, but you have to strategize around it anyway. So,
Yeah, like you're basically announcing the pecking order of your team. Like, okay, we want to vote for person A, but we also have to put a vote on person B. But there's only 6 people here, so you're basically alienating potentially 2 or 3 people to prevent the shot in the dark.
yeah, and I feel like it's easier when there's a clear minority majority, because then you can just be like, "Oh, I'll put a vote on like whoever's in the minority to um like stop if there's a shot in the dark." But if things are more fluid, or if there's like only one person on the outs, then it can get a little messy.
Exactly. So I thought there was a lot of parallels to like what happened this episode to things that we've saw previously in this Survivor season. So one of the parallels at this post tribal that we saw, it reminded me of like the yellow team where Ellie and Janine, they think they're playing the men, but they potentially aren't really playing the men, and Sammy, Owen, and Gabler are going to get one over on Ellie and Janine. Here, the women are actually playing the men, and we saw that play out this episode. So here, Cassidy and Carla and James are actually pulling a fast one over Gio and Ryan, who think that they're the ones in control.
Yeah, yeah. I think the one thing about the team where the women think they're playing the men is the men are just really playing badly anyway. So it almost doesn't even matter that the women aren't actually playing the men, because the men are just making poor decisions. So,
So yeah, we get to the yellow team. Janine finds the Beware advantage. Janine here finally gets some screen time. I'm like, okay. We hear her voice finally, so that's good. And she finds this Beware advantage in a tree, which has a bunch of ants in it. And she's like shaking the advantage off because a ton of ants are stuck to it. I thought this was interesting. Ellie says, okay, she is narrating here. We find this tree, they get that like music in the background. It highlights the funky looking tree, but Ellie is narrating and she's like, I'm gonna go stand guard. Janine, you go and look at the funky tree, which it's a cool looking tree, probably something's going to be there. So I thought that was sneaky on Ellie's part, whether maybe it's purposeful, maybe it wasn't, but if it was purposeful and she's like, yeah, I want my alliance mate to get this advantage, so she loses her vote, but I still get all of the information.
yeah, I don't know. Just because I'm not sure that, like, they knew for sure that Janine would lose her vote, but if it was purposeful, I think that's a good bit of strategy. So,
Yeah, I mean, if you just think, okay, Beware Advantage from seasons past, this is a cool looking tree, maybe something will be there. I'd prefer not to lose my vote if it's like a regular Beware Advantage. You have to say a phrase or do something. So she forces Janine to go over there and not her to go over there. It'd be interesting to know if it was strategy or if she was just, yeah, I don't want to walk through the weeds to get to this tree.
or maybe she doesn't like ants.
Yeah, allergic to ants or something. So Ellie and Janine, they're talking by like the water well. They don't want to tell the boys. They say specifically, let's not tell Owen. Uh-oh. Owen walks up literally while they're saying that, and he sort of sees them, so they have to share the advantage with Owen. And I was like, dang, Yellow is not good at keeping any secrets. All of the information is out, literally about everything. Everyone knows about Gabler's idol here. The whole tribe knows about this idol bracelet. Which I was like, dang, you gotta keep your mouth shut.
Well, I think part of it is just like, again, I'm not really sure what Sammy was hoping to gain by telling Gabler that um, Ellie had, or Janine now had an idol bracelet, because it's like he told Gabler after Gabler had already given up his bead. And it's like, if you really wanted to, like, fuck some shit up, you should have found a way to, like, make it so Gabler didn't ever hand over his bead. Because, like, now at least everyone knows that Janine has an idol, but, like, you could have had her in a place where she had no idol and no, like, vote. So, I don't know. I just, I still am questioning what like Sammy especially has to gain from working with Gabler because it you can tell Gabler isn't really a strategist, and I feel like Sammy isn't a good enough strategist to like be the one kind of like pulling Gabler along. So it maybe this is because I like Ellie and Janine better than Gabler and Owen, but it feels like Sammy would be better off not working with Gabler and Owen. So
That's interesting. Sammy, when he's talking to Gabler, does say, "Oh, we didn't have enough time to tell you, so I'm telling you now after the fact." But I guess it's the fact that, okay, was there actually enough time? Or like if there wasn't, makes sense. You couldn't tell him before he gave the bead. But yeah, I guess that is a little bit weird, but it does seem like Sammy, he's maybe trying to garner trust with Gabler by telling him all of these things. We saw Sammy a couple weeks ago say, "Yeah, you know, the women are trying to trick you into not playing your idol. They want you to think that it's not working anymore and that it's expired." And now we see Sammy telling Gabler about the Janine idol after the fact. But I just thought that this segment was so funny because Gabler's face was like so shocked. I was like, dang, that is really funny. His shocked face.
I thought it was funny because he was like, "And I did something for a friend, and they were mean to me," or you know whatever he said about like,
Hmm.
"Oh, I was trying to be nice and it bit me in the butt," and it's like, dude, this is Survivor. Like, you should assume everyone has an ulterior motive no matter what they do.
I think it was interesting now that all everyone on Yellow knows about this idol bracelet. They probably know it's the Beware advantage. What we said before about, okay, people that know about the idol bracelet can suss it out come merge. So 5 people here, all of Baka knows about the bracelet. 2 people on Red, Cody and Jesse know about the idol bracelet. And it seems like only Carla knows about the idol bracelet on her team, since we didn't see her tell anyone about the advantage. So going into merge, quite a few people do know about the bracelet or about the Beware advantage, that even though no one on Carla's team knows about it right now, someone like on Baka could be like, "Hey, did anyone ask you for beads? They have an idol." And basically everyone come merge can know about the idols.
Yeah, I think that's gonna be interesting. I wonder, like, how much that's actually going to change the game. Like, if any of the people with the idol bracelets are going to be voted out or use their idols before then. Because it would suck if you're Carla and everyone assumes that you have an idol when you already used it or decided not to use it for whatever reason. So,
I guess I could see it causing strife for people like Cody or for people like Carla. So, say Cody didn't tell Dwight and Noelle about the idol, or say Carla doesn't tell Cassidy and James about the idol going into the merge, and then someone spills the beans to Dwight or Noelle or to Cassidy and James, who we've seen, okay, these people might all be working together. It maybe might cause them to question their relationships with Cody and Carla because they're like, dang, you had all of this time. You had, 5, 6 days, and you didn't tell me that you found this advantage. You didn't tell me you found this idol. What's up? Are we actually as close? Maybe they'll get a little bit paranoid or second guess that relationship.
yeah, I always think that's interesting though because everyone is like, "Oh, you shouldn't tell anyone about your idols and stuff." And I think it's like everyone knows that you shouldn't, but they still take it as a personal offense if no one like shares with them. So
Yeah, it's like a double-edged sword. It's like you shouldn't share it, but if you don't share, then people will get mad at you, and then they might try to vote you out because they're mad at you.
yeah, I feel like double-edged sword is definitely a apt way to put it. So
So we see Janine asking for the beads, literally basically the same way that Cody and Carla asks for the beads. Gabler is saying that he's saving this bead for his daughter. He doesn't want to give it. So here, I thought there is a parallel between Justine on Red Team giving her bead to Cody when she got voted out. Here, Gabler is giving the bead to the target. He wants to vote out Janine or Ellie, one of the women on that tribe. But the difference is Gabler here does have a useful idol, so it's not like, okay, Justine got voted out after she gave Cody the idol. Here, Gabler would still be safe, even though he gave the idol to his enemy here. But he says she's her friend, so his friend.
Yeah. It's going to be interesting if that tribe ever goes to tribal council, just because Gabler and Janine now both have idols and everyone else still has their shot in the dark. Fingers crossed for a vote where everyone is immune. Still waiting for that.
I really wanted to see Yellow go to tribal this episode. Like I said last week, they just have so much tension, and especially with all of these advantages now, it would have been a very interesting tribal council to see. Okay, can the men work together to vote out the women, or because the women now have an idol, can they play correctly to save both of them to vote out one of the men? I really wanted to see Yellow go to tribal council, and I'm a little bit like sad that we're having this pretend or real fake merge next week, that we're not going to see this 5-person tribe go to tribal council. It's going to bring the tension into the merge, which I guess is good, but I really wanted to see these 5 people battle it out at a tribal council to see what would have happened here, because we've gotten so much screen time. Okay, men versus women, women versus men, or maybe it's everyone versus Gabler. Like, I wanted to see this play out one tribal council at least.
Yeah, I think it's hard because I feel like the yellow tribe and the blue tribe both have such tension now, but the red tribe doesn't really anymore, or at least if they
Mhm.
have tension, we haven't seen it since they last went to tribal. So it's kind of like I wish that there would be another like not merge episode, but also if red was the one that lost the next time there was an immunity challenge, it probably wouldn't even help because the whole point is that we want either yellow or blue, especially yellow, to go to tribal. So,
Yeah, we need one more regular pre-merge vote here to send yellow to tribal or blue back to tribal to see them fight it out, because there's so much tension. I'm like, okay, it's going to be brought into the merge, but it's not as good as just that 5-person vote because of all this tension. Now it'll be, okay, can Ellie and Janine get more numbers, or can Gabler and the men get more numbers? It's less fun.
mm-hmm.
So we get to the immunity challenge. They are tied together. They have to get through obstacles, fill a bucket with water, and then they have to roll balls up onto the ramp. If you win immunity and a tarp. For the beginning of the challenge, I thought the red team really had good teamwork. You know, it seems like voting NECA out did help them in challenges. They haven't lost again after the NECA vote out. So I am really interested to see this foursome go into the merge. Are they going to go into the merge strong? Did Noelle tell Cody and Jesse about her vote steal? Are they actually a foursome, or is it still maybe like a 3 versus 1 or a 2 versus 2? What is going to happen there? And I thought it was really great. Noelle, like we've said, she is really awesome. She was doing parts of the challenge just hopping on one leg, and then her team was supporting her. So I thought red team had really good teamwork here.
Yeah, honestly, I would love for red to go into the merge united just because they are the tribe that has, well, I guess they were, and now they're tied with blue. But like they're the tribe that has the least amount of original people, so it's not like they could go into the merge and then like start paganing everyone else. But they like, you know, they're solid, and I always think it's interesting when there's a solid group that's difficult to break up, but they're in the minority and not in the majority. Because when the minority turns on each other, you're kind of just like, oh, woohoo. But when the majority turns on each other, you're like, yes, slay.
I think it's interesting preseason when we were doing our tribe assessments. We thought, okay, all 3 tribes seem pretty equal. There's not going to be like a blowout tribe like UA with Shannon Ricard being the last 2 people standing. So it seems like that has happened because it is 4 people, 5 people, 4 people. So it is pretty even for everyone going into the merge, which will make it interesting next week. So everyone here on the challenge, they get to the ball rolling section. That's the great equalizer here. Literally, when this challenge was going on, I thought, okay, we saw a lot from Yellow this episode. We've seen a lot of Yellow about them wanting to trick Gabler into not playing the idol to vote Gabler out. Maybe we see Yellow throw a challenge because they want to vote Gabler out. I was like, okay, that's interesting. We haven't seen even Yellow talk about potentially throwing a challenge. And then literally 2 seconds later, we see Ryan. I'm throwing the challenge because I want to vote Cassidy out. So I hit all the balls off the ramp. I was like, dang, that's crazy.
It feels like such a dumb move to me, just because like when you're throwing a challenge, like you need to make sure that everyone on your tribe who is like on your side is locked in and definitely not going to do something dumb. Because like in essence, Ryan was the one who made it so Gio got voted out. And Ryan and Gio were a tight twosome, and it's kind of like you just voted out your closest ally because you had the exact wrong social read of your tribe. And that is why you shouldn't throw challenges, kids.
Yeah, so I wonder like if Yellow has been thinking about throwing challenges, but Survivor production doesn't want every single team, every episode trying to lose. That's not fun. If everyone is trying to throw challenges to vote out someone, they probably wouldn't show that. So, okay, maybe they're showing it here because the person that wanted to throw the challenge, who we see, Ryan and Gio, they get one upped and they actually basically throw the challenge to get one of themselves voted off of the island. So then they're like, okay, editors, let's show this. So it dissuades people from throwing challenges in the future. And I think that goes back to the first point of watching people get duped. It's like Ryan and Gio were so confident here to then get played after throwing a challenge.
Yep. I think
So
one of the reasons Yellow might not have thrown a challenge to be able to get Gabler out is just because you couldn't even get him out at the first time you threw. And so it's like you don't want to have to lose two challenges just because some guy is annoying you.
that's true. Maybe it's too risky to try to throw it and then to try to trick him into not playing the idol. And there are like quite a few big fans on, the yellow team. So maybe someone like Owen dissuaded people and it's like, no, even though we want to vote Gabler out, it's not smart to throw a challenge.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought Sammy was funny at the end of this challenge. He did the gritty dance last week. And then this week he said something like, I don't go to Chuck E. Cheese that much.
Yeah. Oh, Sammy.
I was like, I wonder if that's like showing his age. Do adults say they don't go to Chuck E. Cheese?
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like if I were doing it, I would make like a Dave and Buster's joke, since Dave and Buster's is like the grown up Chuck E. Cheese, but who
That's what
knows?
I was
Yeah.
thinking. Like they have bars where they have arcades in it, so maybe you would say something like that, or like Dave and Buster's, big chain, similar, an adult Chuck E. Cheese. I'm like, yeah, Chuck E. Cheese. Unless you have kids, you're probably not going there as someone who's, above 18.
Or you are a kid. So,
Yeah. So maybe Sammy's hanging out at the Chuck E. Cheese, maybe to prepare for Survivor. They always say to do carnival games. Maybe he went to Chuck E. Cheese to practice.
yeah, I watched a video on YouTube recently about how to hack a bunch of popular arcade games. So,
Send me those. I want to know.
I will.
So they go because for the immunity challenge, red team wins first, yellow team is second, blue team is last. So red team, they get to pick people to go onto the journey. They pick Gio and Janine and then Jesse from their own team to go to the journey. And here it was exciting because everyone chose to risk their vote. I thought, okay, good for them. They are playing hard. They want to risk their vote to try to get an advantage in the game. They're not playing scared. But I do wonder if this might not be the best move for all three people. Now, Janine and Jesse, they're going into the merge next week with no vote, which could potentially be problematic. Or even if the merge wasn't next week and say Jesse and Janine they lost next time and it was still regular three teams and they had to go to tribal council, maybe would have been problematic because Janine, we've seen, is on the chopping block. If she didn't have a vote, maybe her and Ellie are really going to be the ones going home if they don't have the numbers. I think for Jesse, maybe more fine that he risks his vote here because the red team, it's a little bit more up in the air. Is Jesse on the outs with Cody and it is a 2-2? Or is Jesse actually in with Dwight and Cody and Noelle is still on the bottom of that team? I think it's more okay for him to risk the vote. But like For Janine, I'm like, maybe not the best move to risk your vote, especially because we've seen you're potentially on the bottom.
It also, like for Janine specifically, kind of comes off as greedy because it's like you just found an idol and now you also want another advantage. Like, there's something to be said about playing hard, but you also don't want to be playing so visibly hard that other people think that, like, you're hoarding advantages or something like that. So,
And I think we heard that from Sammy in a confessional. Like, you just got something, you want something else. People are going to want to vote you out because they see that you're actually playing hard. And I think that's a difference. Like, everyone knows on Yellow, Janine has the idol, and now she risked her vote, but she didn't win something. But it's the fact that she did risk her vote in the first place, which maybe means, okay, you feel safe and comfortable compared to like Drea last season. Even though she had 4 advantages, not everyone knew about all of them.
yeah. And I think also, like, I think we talked last week about like, oh, do you fake being on the bottom so that people will like pity you and like just let you have the advantage? And Gio kind of tried to do that and I think did it unsuccessfully. So apparently faking being on the bottom won't always help you.
I thought that was a fun parallel to last week where Noelle says she's on the bottom, but she actually is technically on the bottom. Everyone gives her the advantage. No fuss, no trying to trick her or anything like that. Here, Gio is lying about being on the bottom in his mind, but he's actually on the bottom. So it's like him trying to get the advantage by saying he's on the bottom could have actually worked because he really was on the bottom, but he was just so confident that he had the numbers that he just wanted this extra advantage. And I think it goes to show here, is everyone that comfortable in their spot that they're willing to risk it? I think that's really interesting because we see Gio say that it's okay if I lose my vote because I still have 3 votes on my team. So he's very confident and comfortable that he has the numbers that he is able to maybe lose his vote. Janine also is comfortable that she has the numbers, which maybe it's true, and maybe the men are working with the women to vote Gabler out on Baca. Maybe not. And Jesse, I guess, feels comfortable enough too, but I feel like he's probably the safest one to have risked his vote here. So I don't know though. I feel like going into the merge next week, although they wouldn't have suspected the merge was next week, since in 41 and 42 it was at 12 people and they're at 13 people next week. Maybe they think there's one more round before merge, but like to not have your vote at that first merge tribal council, that can be very risky, especially when it could be another hourglass split up tribal council that maybe they're expecting a 5-5 vote and then you don't have a vote. It'd be terrible.
Yeah, I mean, I think in general, appearing too comfortable on Survivor is a bad thing because I feel
Mm-hmm.
like that's kind of why like Ryan was targeted or Gio and Ryan were targeted because it's kind of like they both seemed very comfortable in their positions. Like Ryan was comfortable enough to throw a challenge and like that's not something that you want from either an ally or an enemy because like you don't want your allies getting complacent because that's when they make mistakes and you don't want your enemies feeling comfortable because they're your enemies. So
I think we need more clips of people falling out of the boats into the water. I chuckled when Gio and Jesse fell. I
I
need
thought
more
that was
clips.
funny. I mean, I always like think about that because I'm like, there's no way that they always like look graceful, like doing all of this stuff. So I always enjoy it when they don't look graceful.
Yeah, more clips of people falling out of the boat, I think, is necessary. So, Gio, he wins the knowledge is power advantage. We see him telling Carla. Carla is like, big nope. Knowledge is power could be used against me, and that'd be very bad. So, I'm like, okay, Carla, that makes sense. You don't want this OP advantage. We've talked at length about how knowledge is power is very OP. So good. You don't want it used against you. That is great. But I was like, dang, imagine how powerful Carla and Gio could have been if they worked together and they had a strong bond and they could have used this against someone else. That would have been fun.
Yeah, I feel like knowledge is power is a difficult one just because of all of the politicking involved. Like, it's just crazy. So I understand why Carla didn't want to mess with it, but also, like you said, it would have been fun.
Exactly. Get the OP advantage out of the game, one less thing to worry about, and last week we were talking, thinking, oh, we thought Gio and Carla were close. We saw them bonding in the premiere episode, but maybe they're not actually that close. And it does seem like they're not actually that close, but maybe Gio thinks they're that close to be telling her about this advantage. And the first person to tell, he didn't even tell Ryan before he told Carla. So good on Carla. She's got that social game going on. But I do wonder if production is angry because they wanted to see, oh, another big move, another big moment with the knowledge is power playing out. And they're mad at, like, Carla, why would you vote the person with this advantage out? Because if this advantage gets placed back into the game later, then I definitely think production switched things around to get the knowledge is power back in play.
Well, I think part of it is, as production, you always have to assume that people are going to get voted out with something in their pocket, just because that's always what ends up happening. So I don't think that production can be too mad at Carla for voting someone out specifically because they have an advantage, because that's just smart strategy.
Yeah, I do think if this advantage gets placed back in play, that might be a little funny business going on because if you're planning the advantages for a Survivor season, they're probably pre planned, like, okay, this is going to go out on this day, that day, whatever. Like, you are not going to pre plan having two knowledge's powers in the game, one going out pre merge and one going out in the post merge game being hidden. So I do think, like, if it is put out later in the game, again, because someone was voted out here with that advantage, it might be a little bit funny business. Like, oh, why are you putting it out now? Are you specifically trying to help someone with this? I don't know. It'd be like giving the idol nullifier out at 6. Not a good thing.
Yeah, I mean, I think that they definitely have some planning, but I think they like to keep the planning kind of flexible.
Yeah, I'm like, it would be such funny business though. Like, are you trying to purposely give the knowledge's power to someone and you're going to replace it out in the game? And then the timing of that placement, it just be a little bit, what's happening?
Mm-hmm.
So, no knowledge is power for now. Maybe it'll come back out later, which might be a little bit angering. But we go to the pre tribal council plans. Ryan has this elaborate acting plan saying, hey, everyone say that you're voting for me. I'm a great actor. I'm going to pretend to Cassidy that I'm on the outs, telling Cassidy, it's okay if you vote for me. I want you to be on the right side of the numbers so you can get further in this game. It really reminded me of the Ellie Gabler scene where both of them were trying to trick one another, but they didn't know that the other person knew more information than them. Here, Cassidy knows that Ryan is trying to trick her, but Ryan doesn't know that Cassidy knows this information. So I thought it was funny.
Yeah, I thought it was so funny when someone tells Cassidy, like, "Oh, Ryan told me to tell you to vote for him," and Cassidy's just like, "Why the fuck would he do that?" Like, I think this definitely was Ryan flying too close to the sun, because it's like no one in Survivor can say like, "Oh, I'm okay with being voted out as long as my tribe stays strong." Like, the only reason I could see this making any sense is if Ryan had an idol and was trying to like idol bait them. But even then, it was pretty obvious like that he wanted votes to go to him, and it's like, or that he didn't actually believe he was going to get voted out because of
Mm-hmm.
this. So,
Cassidy wants to vote Ryan out because she's scared Gio could get something from the island trip. Makes sense, that is a good thing to strategize around. Gio could get a 1-day idol, like she said. Gio could have an extra vote or something. Maybe he got a 50-50 coin. You never know, and maybe Gio could have saved himself this episode. So let's vote Ryan because he doesn't have the advantage. Gio might not give him his advantage because Gio cares about himself. So it makes sense. But then they're like, Cassidy might be a Lindsay 2.0, which I also thought was funny. Like, if Carla and James voted out Cassidy because she got paranoid, quote paranoid, I think Cassidy wanting to vote Ryan makes sense because of a potential advantage. But I thought it would have been funny if there were like two Lindsays.
mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah, it would have been funny, but Unfortunately, Survivor doesn't always do what would be funniest for us.
Yeah, that's why it's not scripted for the TV. But Carla and James, they want to vote Gio. They're sort of putting their foot down there. Carla and James are the swing votes here again, so they're in a pretty good spot. I thought it was fun. Like we said, who is going to get duped this episode? Is Cassidy the one getting played, or are Ryan and Gio the ones getting played? And I thought, good for Carla here. We see her talking with Gio and Ryan, sort of calming them down, being their friends. Gio told Carla about the knowledge is power advantage. It's sort of really scary how good Carla is at faking it with people she doesn't actually want to work with. I'm like, dang,
Yeah,
that's wow.
her social game, impeccable. I love it. Like, I don't know, maybe this is just like a random association, but like Cerie's quote about like being like Oprah in a mafia suit or something, like I feel like that totally applies to Carla. Like she would be an excellent godfather for the mafia because she just is like no BS, can like straight up lie to people's faces with no remorse. Ugh, I love her.
It is honestly so impressive to see because it's like Gio and Ryan, they totally believe Carla and James. We didn't really see James doing any of that work. So basically, Carla here, because that's the edit that we're getting. And I'm like, dang, Gio and Ryan feel that comfortable here that they are throwing challenges, that they are telling about all of these advantages. They for sure think Cassidy is going home and they believe what Carla is buying, which is insane. And I'm like, that's just so impressive how good she is at faking it with her non alliance members. I'm like, dang, her in real life with people she doesn't like, that would be some good stuff. Everyone must think that she likes them.
Mm-hmm.
So Carla's scary good at this, and I just want to know, why do Gio and Ryan have such a dislike for Cassidy? Because we really have not seen anything that Cassidy specifically did. Maybe it's just a personal thing, they don't like each other.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like because Cassidy kind of just randomly became important last episode, it's hard to tell like what led up to all of these relationships being the way that they are. But I'm also kind of worried that Cassidy's going to be like the merge boot because she's suddenly very important now, and that's not always good.
So we get to tribal council. They do their talking stuff. I thought the best part of tribal was the shocked faces. Once Jeff reads that last vote, it was 2-2. Who is going to be that third vote to be 3-2 to get voted out? And he reads Gio's name, and Gio and Ryan both have such shocked faces. And Cassidy's face, she's nervous when Jeff's reading the votes. And then after that last vote is read, she has this smug smile on her face, like, oh, you think that you can play me, but I'm the one playing you. I was like, wow, that is such a good face she had there.
I love it. I love it. We stand.
And I thought Cassidy's like when she was doing her vote, that little confessional she said, "You think you can play me, but I put the blanks in your gun. I have the real bullets." I was like, "Oh, that is
Oh,
such a great line." But
cinema! Cinema!
which I was like, okay, maybe it wasn't actually from the tribal council, or maybe she said it in a confessional because we didn't see her face when she was saying it. Usually, you hold up the parchment or you're writing and you say your line, but it showed the top of her head, which was a weird choice. So maybe it wasn't actually from this tribal and it was from somewhere else. But alas, that was a good line.
Yeah, either way. Ugh, such a great line.
Which I feel sort of bad for Gio. He was so excited during the episode in confessionals. He was so excited jumping up and down to get the advantage, to then be blindsided because Ryan, your supposed number one, threw a challenge. It's funny sad. It's gotta suck for Gio.
Mm-hmm.
But I thought it was fun to see people get played, but in a totally fair world, Ryan should have been voted out here because he threw the challenge and he should get, the comeuppance for doing this, not Gio for being, associated with Ryan.
Mm-hmm.
So, Alyssa, do you think this was a good or bad move for Carla and James to vote out Gio or Ryan, or voting out Cassidy?
I think that voting out Gio or Ryan was probably better just because they were a duo and, duos can be a lot more dangerous. I think also Cassidy is more willing to work with them than Gio and Ryan were. Like, Cassidy is willing to work with them, I think, indefinitely, whereas Gio and Ryan only wanted to work with them to get out Cassidy. And then for if there hadn't been a merge or a fake merge, it would have been Carla and James versus Gio and Ryan in a 2-2 split. Not fun. So I think it was a good move.
Yeah, I agree. I think they're probably under the assumption that merge is going to be at 12 because we saw merge at 12 for 41 and 42, no tribe swaps. So I think if they're under that assumption, it makes sense to vote Gio or Ryan here because maybe they're thinking, okay, let's just lose the next immunity challenge because merge is until 12. Next week is 13. Let's just lose again and then we can vote out Ryan after we vote out Gio this week. We don't have a problem with Ryan or Gio being mad that we voted their buddy out of the game because we still have one more vote until merge. But if they knew merge was going to happen next week, maybe it would make sense to vote out Cassidy, but I think we just haven't seen why the relationship between Gio and Ryan versus like Carla and James and Cassidy, why it has become so soured. Why do people not want to work with Gio and Ryan? Because if it is the case that people don't want to work with Gio and Ryan actually, and they're just faking that relationship for that fake alliance, then in any situation, it makes more sense to vote out Gio or Ryan, even though Gio and Ryan think that they're working with you because you don't actually trust them. You don't actually want to work with them for whatever reason. So I think it is a little bit tricky now, though, that we know a merge or fake merge is happening next week. They're going in 3 versus 1, where potentially Ryan could be very, very angry at Carla, James, and Cassidy. So it'll be interesting to see, can Carla, James, and Cassidy repair that relationship with Ryan, or is Ryan going to go into the merge and immediately flip, immediately go with other people and throw Carla, James, and Cassidy under the bus to try to get one of them voted out? Or can they repair that relationship? Like, no, Gio was being annoying. Gio was too confident. Gio had the knowledge is power that he didn't tell you about Ryan, so that's why we voted him out, and then Ryan forgives them. I think that'll be interesting.
I mean, do they even want to repair the relationship with Ryan? I think that's like an important thing. Like, you don't have to have a relationship with everyone, and if they think that like Ryan is going to be like more trouble than his vote is worth going into the merge, they might just hook up with like another group rather than try and repair things with Ryan.
I guess, but I'm like, I'm under the philosophy, even if you hate someone, you should try to at least be buddy buddy or friends with them. Maybe you're not working with them, but you should at least have a working relationship because it would totally suck. You know, Ryan goes into merge and he hates Carla now because she played him here, and then he like gathers numbers to try to get Carla voted out or something. Like, you want to be semi decent with everyone even if you're not going to work with him anymore, because you never
Mm-hmm.
know. Ryan could go and be like, Carla did this, Carla did that, Carla has an idol after someone tells him about the beads.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm excited to see what happens next week at this merge, fake merge. Like, it is a new earn the merge twist, they're saying. So it's not going to be the hourglass, and it is one person earlier. So we're at 13 and not 12. So maybe they could do 2 teams of 6 and one person gets sent to the Hourglass Island or something to get to 13 instead of 5-5 and 2 people sit out of the challenge. But I really just hope it's not the Hourglass, which they said it's not going to be, but maybe it's even dumber than the Hourglass. It's
Mm-hmm.
worse.
That's always the gamble you make with Survivor. You leave behind one crappy advantage, and is next advantage going to be worse?
Yeah, next advantage, at least if it's something like, okay, you get to hand pick 5 people or 6 people and there's like some restrictions of who can be safe, then at least it's more strategy than this one team is safe, this one team's not safe. But it seems like they might do that kind of split tribal again because they are framing it as earn the merge. So it does seem like a handful of people will be safe and a handful not. So it just depends how those people get safe and how those people are not safe.
Yeah, but I guess we'll have to see because there's no use speculating until we know for sure.
Speculating something worse happening. Then I guess if you are down on it, then you'll be pleasantly surprised, or you'll just be more
Yes.
disappointed next week.
Mhm.
So,
So,
yeah, I'm excited.
yeah, I'm also excited. Let us know in the comments down below what you think of the yellow feud. Do you think that Gabler is going to get voted out, or do you think that the men are going to trick the women? Let us know what you think about the blue team. Were Carla and James right to vote out Gio, or should they have voted out Cassidy? What do you think is coming with the upcoming merge? Let us know all that and more in the comments down below, and we will see you guys